what we're doing today is called design thinking. And it is something we use, as grown-ups in our lives all the time to help us problem solve and to make sure when we're problem solving that we're doing it not just because we think it's a good idea, but that we're doing it because the people we are hoping to help out or help problem solve for, that we actually know what their needs are, that we're listening to them. We listen to them, we hone in on a problem, and then we brainstorm what are some ways that maybe no one's ever thought of before to solve the problem. And then we actually make it. You start messing around. In this case today we'll be drawing, and then we test it. And today we're going to be testing our ideas by presenting them to each other and getting feedback. So there's a couple of other illustrations here that show some other ways that you can think about it. Empathy or understand. Both of them are going to be about the community you're serving, and that's where we're going to begin our workshop in a moment. It's like really doing whatever homework you can to best understand, not just like we're going to do this for people in this age bracket in this community, but what do they care about? What do they actually need? Not like, what do I think they need? Talk to them, right? Figure that out. And as much as we can know about them and try to step inside their shoes, the better we're going to be able to define the problem we're solving. So design thinking can be called a number of different things. And so empathy might be understand, prototype might be called try. So you'll see it called kind of different things. In the beginners, there's a new beginner group working on apps and AI. And they think about the design thinking process in this language in the curriculum. Dream, think, plan, build, create. It's really the same thing. You have to have your idea. You have to think about how to make it in the best way. You collaborate together. You make it together. You build and create. So that's kind of the same process, just said in a different way. So before we get too deep into design thinking, I really want us all to shake off any, if you're having any nervousness about today, if you wonder what's expected of you today, there are some mindsets or ways of thinking that we want to go into the design thinking process with. And embracing diversity in all forms. Sometimes we hear the word diversity and we think it might be related to age, or we think it might be related to culture, but really think about diversity in many, many different ways. So it helps keep your mind wide open. Radical collaboration is the one that I really want to emphasize. Radical collaboration, just really be open in your group. Everyone's bringing their own experience to the group, and it's going to be awesome if you all collaborate together, because it's only together that you're going to bring all your strengths into the thing you design. And then the last one I want to talk about is being open to failing forward. What do you suppose I mean by being open to failing forward? If somebody wants to take a guess.
I can.
Okay.
Like if you fail, just keep moving forward, or it helps you go forward on it.
Absolutely. So, sometimes we think of failure as something really, really bad. And the design thinking process doesn't say that at all. You're absolutely right. Just keep moving forward. We have this idea that there's a right way to do things and a wrong way. And the design thinking process is no. Failure's good, because then you learn something doesn't work and then you innovate a new idea. So I just really want to encourage you that you might not get your app finished in a day. You probably don't need your app finished in a day. You might not get it right the second or third time, but just keep trying different things. So thank you for that beautiful explanation. So the process and design challenge, as we mentioned in the beginning, how might we develop ideas for mobile apps or AI projects to solve problems in our community? So design thinking usually starts with a question. And here, the ... right now is the problem that you are ultimately going to define for your group. How might we solve this problem with a mobile app or AI? And so that's the question that's going to guide you throughout the workshop. And sometimes it seems like we have this, we're going to do this, but there's so many things to think about. And some of you have started the thinking, some of you are in different places in the process. But we're going to talk about who's my audience, my community, who's going to use this thing. Okay, what is it going to be? Like, what are we going to put in it? The content. How are we going to deliver it? And that's sometimes really hard. We have so many choices, on our phones and in these apps and in AI, and we have to think about, you can't do it all, right? So how are we going to deliver our product? Relevance. And I'm going to go back to this over and over again. Is it something someone actually needs? Is it something they're going to use? And if we're having trouble answering that question, going back and saying, how can we make it really relevant to the person we're designing it for? Usable. Have you ever gone onto your phone or your computer or an app and you're totally confused? And like, how do I use this? Part of your job is to make sure that your app and AI project are usable. When I say access, it's access in so many ways. Like, who can use this? Like, is the language a barrier? Are the tools you're using barriers to access? Think about anyone who you might want to use your app. Innovation, and that's just like, be wide open to what can happen. Co-creation, that's radical collaboration we talked about. And then design, does it look good? Like, is somebody going to want to look at it? If good design, they're going to want to use it. The first thing we're going to do, and that's where you can work on your deck together as well, is we're going to build empathy. That's the understanding your audience. And this part is kind of interesting because, as I mentioned before, sometimes we make assumptions about the people we're designing for. And the more we actually know about them, even better if you have an opportunity to talk to people who are in that community or user group and find out from them what they would like. That is a super awesome opportunity if you're able to do that. So whether you have your problem, like you've come to the workshop with a problem, or whether you're just getting started, this is an important part of the workshop. So what we're going to do, I'll give you prompts on the next slide, is we're going to go into our deck and onto the sheet that's called community. And that means the people using my app. And write down everything we know about them. On there, I want you to say, like, maybe you've done homework before this workshop. Maybe you've observed your community already. I know in your design, in your curriculum for Technovation, they've asked you to think about what you know about your community. And we're inviting you today to put that all into the slide deck for your group. Whoops. So in your deck, see how much you can put down about your community. What is your community like? Just like, what do you think about them? What ages are you designing for? What languages does your community or your users, what languages do your users speak? Are there cultures or traditions that help you understand your community? Where are they? Are they in Minnesota? Are they in like a city like St. Paul, or are they in Winona, or are they around the world? So kind of think about where the people you are designing for live, and what do they like interests. What do they like to talk about? What do they like to do? What are they interested in? And you might not have the answers to all of this, but then that big question on the bottom, what else is important to know, about your community? The next part we're going to do is the part that some of you may already have come with a problem in mind. And it's really important that we hone in on the problem you're trying to solve. And hopefully talking about your community might have helped you figure out, like, maybe we have to tweak our problem a little bit or solve it in a different way. So the next thing we're going to do is define and describe the problem that we are going to solve with our app. So the question here is, what opportunities for problem solving in your community have you discovered from your interviews, discussions, research, from the work you just did together? we're going to use the word opportunities, and that means it's a nicer word than saying, what are the problems in our community? But you could also think of opportunities as what are the challenges in our community? Like, where are the opportunities for your team to step in and really make something that's going to help your community? So we're going to be brainstorming opportunities for problem solving. Again, you might have your problem, but I really want you to dig deep into it. Like, think about, like, how might we, like, what is it you are actually trying to do? And that's why we use how might we questions. And we have here some examples. So when you get into your opportunity slides, come up with 3 questions, like how, these are just examples, not your questions, but how might we connect community elders with care partners? So if you're designing an app, that's the question, like, how do we connect them? Or how might we help people moving into a new neighborhood locate resources? It says these are the who we want to help, and this is what we want to do, and how can we do that? Or how might we safely connect families with online tutors? You want to connect families, but you have to make sure it's safe. And who do you want to connect them to? It's tutors. So we're going to do a little bit of how might we, and then you're going to write a statement. Like, you might have an idea already, but I really want you to then come up when we go into our breakout groups with a problem statement. And that is what is the problem? As much as you can hone that in, what is the need of your community? Who does the problem affect and how? Like, so you have your community, but who are the people in there? Who are the users, and how are they affected, and how? Because that's going to help you design. And then, why is this an important problem to solve? And so we have some examples. Because problem statements sometimes seem really hard, but here are some examples that we came up with. The problem we are trying to solve is connecting housebound people, for whom, in the Twin Cities, with trustworthy care partners and companions. And why are we doing this? Because isolation has become more prevalent during COVID-19. So we've answered the who, the what, why is this important? Another example, the problem we are aiming to solve is providing people with recipe ideas based on the ingredients they have at home, because people are less able, this is the why, financially and physically, and or willing to go to the grocery store during a pandemic. So you've answered your what is it, what is it, who is it for, what is it, and why. And then there's one more example. We want to create an app to help a local nonprofit manage their inventory of used technology. So it's a nonprofit. We want to help them manage their inventory. Why? So that they can more readily assign volunteers to upgrade the equipment. And the bigger why is then more people get that equipment. So I hope that this makes sense. And even if you have your problem, I really want you to use the next, let's say, 10 minutes. And if you need more time, we'll do that, to hone in on defining what it is. So the next thing we're going to do, this is like where we really get to have fun, although it's all fun, get creative, and we're going to really brainstorm solution ideas, because now you have a pretty good understanding who you want to design for, but then, like, what do we have to do that? Like, what should this app or AI project be to help solve the problem? And if you look at the designer perspective below, it's like generate extreme radical ideas, abundance of ideas. Don't stop with your first idea. So what I would love for you to do is, if you have a pen or a pencil or a piece of paper, or if you like to draw in your slide deck, we're going to, at this point, start brainstorming ideas. And each individual, not as a group, I want each of you on your own, take a little alone time, to generate a minimum of 3 solution ideas. I'd love for you, no one's going to see your drawing, and it's not about being an artiste, but there is something about thinking visually and drawing a picture that helps you problem solve. So for each solution idea, draw a picture and a phrase to describe what that solution is. And then after you've each had like, I'd like you to have a good 5 minutes to really brainstorm on your own. and then get together in your group. And you can brainstorm while you're in your breakout rooms individually. When you're ready, share all your ideas in your slide deck. And then as you look at them, see where they align. Like, are there a number of them that are looking the same, or maybe they are the same big idea. You've all come to it separately. That might say it's the best idea, or it might say that was just all of our first idea. And then hopefully from all the ideas that you present, you're going to pick one for today. Doesn't mean it's the one you're going to end up with, but for today, pick the one idea that you want to pursue, because in the next step, we're going to start drawing our app or our project. So for now, a couple of things I want you to think about as you're brainstorming your ideas. Is this something that could be done without any technology at all? So does adding technology make it better? How? Think about that. Just really think about, could it be a mobile website? And if it's not a website, like, what about making it into an app makes it better? It's just a chance to really, really think about what you're doing. And how can you take advantage of all the things apps let you do? So really think about the things you like to do as you're brainstorming your solutions. But based on what you came up with in your brainstorm, a couple more things to think about as you're beginning to prototype. Have you had an opportunity to look at what other companies have done? Like, is somebody else doing what you're doing? And if yes, how is your solution going to be different and innovative? I want to make sure you're thinking about that. So, and then always keep in mind the end user. So you brainstormed all your great ideas. Make sure that you're picking one that really, impacts the people you're making it for. And then finally, as we go into the prototyping phase, we're really going to think about all of the features that mobile phones can leverage, whether it's GPS or cameras, anything, translation tools. Think about everything that your phone can do. So we're going to start thinking with our hands. In this case, thinking with our hands is with your pencil or your markers, and you're going to be drawing out ideas for your app. And so what the really important part of prototyping is, don't go into this thinking it's a finished product. A prototype is just that. It's beginning to problem solve through making. And it's through this making and then like telling other people about it and getting feedback that you move on to the next prototype. A prototype is supposed to be unfinished. It's messy. It's thinking, it's making thinking visible. That was one of those principles of design thinking that we saw in the beginning. So through this next part, we're really going to discover and learn just by starting to put our ideas on paper, how we might solve that problem and meet the opportunity. And I really want to say this should be fun. It's hard work, but it should also be fun. It's almost like the playing part, like really figuring out all the little nuts and bolts and how they work together, and not getting stuck when something doesn't quite work, because it's going to work eventually, right? So when you're beginning to prototype, you want to, again, always go back to the user. What features will they want to use? Will they be able to use? What features do they want? And why? And then the story mapping. One of the first things you're going to want to do is figure out, what are the steps to using your app? So somebody has to, I don't know if you're creating logins, but normally someone has to, log into your app. Do they need to create a profile? What is required of them to do that? And then do you need a menu? Do you need explanation of what your app does? Do you need, what steps do people need to accomplish the problem you're going to want to solve? What information are they going to have to share? What do they need to know? If young people are involved, are there safety measures you have to think about? So really think about the map of your app. And then, are there steps you might be able to skip? Sometimes we have this conversation about getting ready in the morning. There are certain things you have to do between the time you wake up and the time you go to school. And then there are some steps that you can skip. Maybe you don't want it, but you can. Like, really think about making your app as user-friendly and smooth as possible. And so we're going to do two things in the next. I'm going to give you 25 minutes for this next step, but it's going to be two things. So one is going to be the action of the prototyping. You're going to use the templates of the phones or tablets, and you're going to begin to draw your own. Really, again, some of you are here on your own, so you can do your own thinking. But if you're here with your group, really go back to that radical collaboration idea. Because if there are more than one of you here, you might even, once you've mapped out together, you might each want to tackle a different part of the prototype. But maybe the group that's working on walking the pets, like, what does the user end for the person looking for a walker look like? What does it look like for the person who's looking to walk somebody's dog? Something like that. So you're going to start drawing your ideas. And when the prototype is ready, here's the fun part. We're all going to come back together, and you are going to prepare, you're going to present your app to all of us. So you're going to tell us about your app, and you might want to present it, on paper. You might want to use your Google Slides. You will have an opportunity to share those, whatever works for you. So draw out your app. We'll check in with you and see how you're doing for time, and then we'll allow time to organize a presentation for the group. And the presentation is going to answer a few questions. So we're not going to break out quite yet. Let's look at this. On the slide, present to the group, you're going to want to give your app or AI project a name, a creative title. What are you going to call it so that people know what it is and want to open it, want to use it? You're going to want to share with us a 1 to 2 sentence description of the prototype you've created. It's like, what do we want to know about it? Like, what's the most important thing we want to know about it? And then you're going to show us some of the design features from your prototypes and anything else you want to share. When you're presenting, if you can show a few pictures of your prototype, that's great. If you can't, that's okay too. And then if you want to, I encourage everyone to present, but if you're on your own, you'll be the presenter. If you're in a group, just pick whoever you want to present the group's project and plan for a 2 to 3 minute presentation, verbal presentation, but on our Zoom here. And then all I can say is, do your best, and then we'll go put it back out to the group, and we will ask you questions and tell you what we like about your app, and if there's something we want you to think about. Okay, so 25 minutes, we will check in and see where you're at in case we need longer, because this part's going to take a little while to work out your app. So good luck, and looking forward to seeing what you come up with. And just so we can think about the next steps, I won't be here to know what you're doing with them, but it's kind of fun just for you to now think about. You have the beginning ideas for your apps. You're going to continue to refine them. And then to think about what's next, thinking about where your idea could go after you've done all of this thinking. Now, how do you make it happen in reality, right? You've already started that. What is the context? What processes do you have to consider next? So I'd love for you in groups, and you don't have to do this right now, but when you meet with your groups, identify your next 3 implementation steps. Sometimes taking things in smaller bits really helps. How might your idea now be scaled up and developed into we have an app and we had some AI going on in that app, right? So what do you have to do to make that happen? Keep talking to each other. That's super important. And I just want to say thank you and good luck.
Thank you, Sheila. So great to have you back again. For everyone, just so you know, you obviously all have the PowerPoint slides that you can continue to work on, or you can share those with your group members if they weren't here today. We will also have a short recording of this available, so if anyone wants to check that out, we'll be sharing that with the mentors, and your team will be able to find that. So before we go, just one reminder that we will be having our next event is our Pitchapalooza event, where we're going to be starting to talk about our pitch. So that's a little bit further down the road in March. So that's, again, more talking about filming skills and what you need to do to start thinking about how to put together that pitch video. Then we also still have the Coder Dojos that if you need any help with any of the coding with Thunkable or with some of the AI concepts, those are still ongoing on the 2nd and 4th of every month. So all of that information is available on the Code Savvy website. So you'll be able to use those throughout the season.
So I've been doing design thinking for quite a while now. We had a person come in from the University of Minnesota who trained us really intensely on doing design thinking. And then I did a course online with Stanford. It's a free course that anyone can do to really learn their method of design thinking. And before I knew it, we were using it at work, with staff, with teachers, with who else was we were doing design thinking with staff, with visitors, and with teachers. And then I had the opportunity to do a whole project with girls, high school girls here and in Kenya. And it was called Girls Design the World. And we used the design thinking process on both continents to come up with ways that we could better our own community all around environmental issues. So I got into it rather intensely then. And I even had a chance to do design thinking in China with the staff, the museum there. So it's been a journey. And
are there big differences between, like, one of the things that I love about the way that you present this is how it's more visual, and how there's these concepts, right? But when you use that visual language, they're easily translatable. Yeah. Have you found that in your work with other countries, and that these ideas kind of transcend cultures?
Absolutely. What's so great, I think one of the tenets of design thinking is to make your thinking visible. And, the idea that a Sharpie can make anyone an artist, right? Like, no, don't be afraid of that Sharpie. Take that big bold Sharpie and a piece of paper and start just putting your ideas on paper, because we know that, like, when our hands and brains work together and we make our ideas visual, it's different. It's a different process. And it helps us talk through the process and understand sometimes where the bumps are, or at least for some people, it just gets you started.
Right.
And it's fun.
It's fun. Let's see. A couple of the questions that I had were, and you kind of touched on this a little bit, but do you use design thinking in your day-to-day life? Like when you're going through what you need to do for work?
I do. And so design thinking is really critical to the job I do. So I work with teachers and with students as an art museum educator. If I'm designing something for teachers to use, I want to talk to them first. I want to say, I'm thinking about something to do with social emotional learning, or we're thinking about doing a new tour around identity. Is this something your students might be interested in? Sometimes we can talk to students, but that's a little bit more challenging, for us to, if it's informal, we can sometimes do that. And then really find out if it's even, like, we think it's a good idea, but would they use it? And if they're not going to use it, why do it, right? Or if teachers would say, we would use it if it was this, and then we design it. And then what's so great about the process is you're never done. We will often, before we commit something to the website, we'll then give it to teachers and say, can you practice this in your classroom? Can you try it out on your students? And they'll try it out on their students and they'll give us feedback and we can fine tune it. Sometimes we get the questions wrong. Sometimes we don't anticipate what actually is going to be interesting. So it's a process. And sometimes if we put something out there ahead of time, or say we have a program that I run with my colleague here called Creativity Academy, and we design the lessons and we observe the students and we see where they're engaged, and we try to make thoughtful decisions about how we're going to do it different the next year. And then sometimes we think we've solved the problem, but it's really still a prototype, because then we go to the students and we're like, what did you find most challenging about today's lesson? And what did you enjoy the most? And something we thought, oh, we're making stories about community related to a monk story blanket, so let's use cloth. Well, we didn't know how challenging drawing on the cloth was going to become for fourth grade hands. And then we have to say, okay, that was a cool idea. It looked great in the gallery. And it's okay to have some challenges, but if that many kids were challenged by it, let's do something different. And we move to paper.
More accessible.
Yeah. So that's a long answer, but
no, that's awesome. That's awesome.
we're using it all the time.
Part of that iterative process, obviously, is that there's going to be some failures, and there are going to be learning opportunities that we learned in the workshop.
Yeah.
Can you talk about a little bit, or maybe give some examples of how that failing forward idea has actually been beneficial or helped in a project?
Yeah, I think even with the example of the fourth graders in Creativity Academy, it's the fact that our users demonstrated to us that this was difficult, and then we could make that small change from drawing on cloth to drawing on paper, and how the students felt about themselves, but also the artworks they produced. They didn't have that barrier, so we were able to remove it. So we made, we basically had to say, okay, that was, I'm going to put air quotes for failure. And then we fixed it, right? Fixed it for now. I'm working with a group of researchers right now. So we're the only art museum and then some maker spaces. And we're doing a project looking about the whole concept of failure. And really, we have talked a lot about what is failure and who decides. Like, it's a systemic, like, who decides that something is a failure, right? If instead of a learning opportunity. So do we get rid of the word failure and just say, okay, that didn't work the way I wanted it to, and I'm going to find another approach? Sometimes I think that that's a healthy way to think about failure, but we're so programmed to use the language of failure.
Right.
And to see it as something bad, but I really think we learn from almost every time we fail.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. The last thing I was curious about, if you can talk about, would be you talked a lot about the idea of radical collaboration. How do you embrace that in your life?
I embrace it in every single way. Like, if I have an idea, I go in, I approach every idea I have I start with, oh, that's a really great idea. But I know that if I test that idea with other people and really put it through a process with other people, that is going to be a better idea. So for me, that is radical collaboration. And sometimes it means the idea that I thought was so good in the beginning isn't even on the table anymore when I'm done. But it's to recognize that we all learn differently and we all lead differently, and that we're all better together. And so for me, it's just the way I work, teamwork. I'm not so good at working by myself, because the ideas are better when I radically collaborate.
I agree. All right. Is there anything else that you maybe wanted to touch on or didn't get enough time in the workshop that you want to make sure we talk about or cover?
I would love to just talk about design thinking and how anyone can really use it in their lifetime. Stanford does a thing about design a gift for somebody. Like, so you're sitting next to somebody. So think of it, maybe it's your best friend, maybe it's someone in your family, maybe it's a total stranger. And if you sit and talk to somebody and ask them questions and get to know them better, you are going to be in a much better position to make something for them that actually, that they will use, they will like, that fits them. And at MIA, so here's another fun thing. I would love you, if you're walking around, start looking at furniture and have someone in mind. Like, let's say I want to design a chair for Val. So I've talked to Val and I'm like, So what are some of your challenges, or what do you do when you're sitting in a chair? Is a chair a place you spend a lot of time in, or what would make you spend more time in it? The more questions I find and the more I know about you, I can make you a beautiful functional chair that's going to meet your every need. Now, could you imagine, like, I'm sitting in a chair that's pretty good, but I know what I would do different if somebody asked me.
Yeah.
So I just think go around, look around the world, or if you're thinking, I wish this thing was a little bit different, talk to a few other people, find out if they feel the same way you do, and you might have an opportunity to come up with a brand new design. Right?
I love that idea. And it's also just looking at things a different way, and making your thoughts more user centric.
Yeah.
I like that.
And what if you drew that, right? So even if you're afraid of that Sharpie, I always have Sharpies around, but you take that Sharpie, draw your ideas, show them to the person you want to make it for, let them pick, let them help you tweak it, let them try it out. That's prototyping, even if you're doing it, on a piece of paper. And then you're much more likely to come up with something that will pass. That's that failure thing, pass the test, the testing part.
More people will love it.
Be able to use it.
Yes. Awesome. Well, that was great. Thank you so much.